So I will start from the beginning, okay, of the para. It is only when we follow the yogic process. So Srimni is saying, remember the chapter Indeterminates and Cosmic Determination. Where is the origin of everything in the universe? Where is the origin? That's the main problem he is dealing with. He started with the theory that matter is the origin, and it looks like that to science when you see. But you can't explain because there seems to be a choice. It's not rigid laws that apply. There seems to be a chance element. So that means consciousness. There seems to be a choice. So that is eliminated. So let's look at consciousness, he's saying. Now you come to the physical consciousness of life in animals, that doesn't solve the problem. Then you go to the mental consciousness of man, that also doesn't solve the problem. So let's go higher up, he's saying. So that's what he's saying in the para. It is only when we follow the yogic process of quieting the mind itself that a profound result of our self-observation becomes possible. Even at the mental level, all human beings who are developed in mind can observe themselves. Okay, they can observe their body, they can observe their vital, they can observe also their thoughts. But usually the observation happens after the thought has occurred. But you have to develop the capacity of observing your thought while it is occurring. That's the important point, simultaneously. So then the separation between the thinker and the thought comes, and your mind rises above, out of the brain, out of your body mind life prison, and it goes up, and then you have a much better understanding of things. Even that isn't the solution. Then they will tell you that no, even there are doubts. So it goes on. So now this is what he's saying. I am reading each one, okay? It is only when we follow the yogic process. It's a yogic process. There's a discipline to it. Sitting quiet and concentrating. Yogic process of quieting the mind itself, that a profound result of our self-observation becomes possible. For first, we discover that mind is a subtle substance, a general determinate or generic indeterminate. This we have discussed yesterday. A general determinate is it's a determinate of the Satchidananda, which is the indeterminate. Okay. The mind plane of consciousness, because if you think in other terms of only substance, ether, air, fire, water, earth. Ether is the place where only the sound is there. Then air and fire are usually the mental regions. So they are thicker, denser substance. So it's a substance. Mind is a substance. So in that substance, okay, it's a general determinate. It's a determinate of what? It's a determinate of various types of thoughts, feelings, concepts, percepts. So it gives rise to all those type of things. Or it's a generic indeterminate. Itself, it generates other types of determinates. Okay. So the universal mind plane is the origin of all thoughts. You will have a thought, I will have a thought. So these are all coming from the one single universal plane, which is the generic indeterminate. Indeterminate sounds a little negative, but actually it's a vaster, it's the origin. Indeterminate because it doesn't have features. It has less features than one single thought. Okay. Which mental energy, when it operates, throws into forms or particular determinations of itself. And what are they? Thoughts, concepts, percepts, mental sentiments, activities of will, and reactions of feeling. While reading this lesson, it came to me. Think of clay, which is the generic indeterminate. It has no form, but forms are possible in it. So if you are a potter, you will take that and give it a form. You will make it a pot, you will make it a small pot, you will make it a vase, you will make it a plate, cup. So those are the general determinates. Okay. So this is what he's saying. There is a huge mental plane of consciousness from which your individual mind makes small forms. And those small forms are your thoughts. They can be trivial, they can be of medium quality, and they can be of very high spiritual quality also, but they are all thoughts. So this is what he's saying. So activities of will, everything, all coming from the mind plane of consciousness. Now he says, if you rise to that mental consciousness, which is one, what happens? He is discussing that. For first, we discover that mind is a subtle substance, a general determinate, or in generic indeterminate. It can be both. If you see upwards or downwards, it can be both. Okay? Which mental energy, when it operates, throws into forms or particular determinations. A form is nothing but a particular determination of itself. A cup is a form, but it's a particular determination of the clay. Okay, so exactly in the same way. Thoughts, concepts, percepts, mental sentiments, activities of will and reactions of feeling. I'm not discussing this because it's quite complicated. What's the difference between a thought and a concept? What's the difference between a percept and a concept? Okay, you can think it out for yourselves. Mental sentiments. So mental, but it is mixing with the sentiment, which is vital. Activities of will and reactions of feeling, but which, when the energy is quiescent, in other words, when your mind effort is quiescent, can live either in an inert torpor or in an immobile silence and peace of self-existence. So what he's saying, yesterday we were discussing, and I'll point out to you, this is what happens. When you make your mind silent and your consciousness rises to the infinite nirvana, what happens? It's really worth knowing, and it is, you imagine, okay, we'll go a little into detail in this one. You are conscious of yourself as an individual. You are conscious of yourself as this is me, my body, my vital, my mind. Okay, all these things are very, very clear. You identify yourself with your very, very clear limited forms. Okay, now when you make your mind silent, your consciousness rises out of the prison house of body, mind, life and goes up. And when it goes up, ego disappears. If ego disappears, what do you identify yourself with? You are not identifying yourself with your body, your vital and your mind. So what are you identifying yourself with? It becomes very difficult. So it's like the grain of salt, which is very, very clear. It's got features. It's got shape, size, color, weight, everything. And it knows this is me. But if it goes into the water, it dissolves and goes everywhere. Now it wonders, where is my shape? Where is my weight? Where is it's all gone? So what happens is, two things can happen when you go into the higher level of consciousness. If your individuality is not really very firmly rooted in the individual consciousness, two things can happen. One, you become like a leaf in the wind. You are blown about. You don't know where you are. You don't know what it is. I'll give you two instances of this, which is very interesting. Okay, because this is what happens. You lose your sense of individuality. You are the universe. You are everywhere. You are the salt which is filling the whole ocean. Okay, so two things can happen, as I said. Sri Aurobindo says in one letter to Nirodha. Nirodha is saying, sir, you are vast and you are infinite, but we are very satisfied with Sri Aurobindo as he is, as we understand it, as we see you and experience you through our sight and our touch. Okay. So Sri Aurobindo says, very good, I have no objection to that. But there's one small problem. I don't know who this simple Sri Aurobindo is. So what does he mean by that? He means, I am not the body, mind, life. You think that you are seeing me as a body, mind, life and you are giving all your obedience and your surrender to me. But who is this? I am not the body, mind, life anymore. I am that infinite consciousness. I don't know who this simple man is. Okay, so this is what happens. Now, in Sri Aurobindo's case, very clear, you universal individual he became. Now, there is another case also in which I will tell you this famous, I mention this because to make you understand. Sadhguru, when he sat on that rock in Mysore on Chamundi Hill, for a short while, his consciousness shot out of the body and he became universal. When he came back into his consciousness, remember there is no time and space there. So he thought he was there for 10 minutes, but he found that 3 hours had gone by. Okay? And he said, he didn't know who he was anymore. So when you identify yourself with your limitations of body, mind, life, and you go and experience that you are much more than that, you are not this at all, then there's confusion in the mind sometimes. So when that confusion comes, there are 4 things that can happen. That's what Sri Aurobindo says. Okay, the phenomena are very well known in yoga. Okay, state of physical, vital, mental inactivity. You can have Jadavat, Balavat, Unmattavat, Pishachavat. Okay? Jadavat, you are like a stone. I told you yesterday that in Tamil Nadu there was one. I did refer to it, and I'm telling you, you can check yourself also if you want. His name is Pundi Swami. You type that and you will see what I'm saying. Okay, like a Jadavat. Okay, it's a very interesting story. So I'm just telling you in brief what happened to him. Okay, Pundi Swami. He was at a very high level of consciousness, but in the physical world, completely like a leaf in the wind. No movement at all. One day he was sitting on the bank. This is a true story. It is repeated in many places. He was sitting on the bank of a river, and there was suddenly a what's called a flash flood. Na? Flash flood. Suddenly the water comes. There's no time to even run away, and completely engulfed him. And along with that, a lot of sand also came, and everybody in the village thought that he has died. Okay. But after 3 days, not 1 day or 2 days or not after a couple of hours, after 3 days, they found on the bank of the river some hair sticking out of the sand. So they removed the sand and they found that this fellow was there. Okay, Pundi Swami. His pictures are all there. Many pictures are there. And then they started, my God, if this fellow has lived for 3 days without food, he must be a great soul. So they started worshipping him. But he wouldn't do anything. So people used to give him food, he used to eat. People used to give him a bath, he used to very willingly accept. If you give him a glass of tea, he will take it. If you give him a cigarette, he will smoke it. Okay. So this is the Jadavat, Jada, like a stone, not moving at all. Okay. Then there's the other phenomenon of Balavat. Now that's very interesting because we have had a case like that in the ashram. Okay. I'll give you Unmattavat and Balavat. I'll give you 2 examples in the ashram. Balavat there was a man, okay, he was a Bengali man, tall, dark, thin, and his name was Shurenda. But he used to behave in such odd ways that we used to call him Shuren Pagla. Okay. So, and he used to behave like a little child. Okay. He used to always go to the dining room at the last minute. Dining room is closed at 12:30. He will be always running towards the dining room, asking everybody on the way, what is the time? What is the time? And he will go around. Every day the same story. Okay. And he would be like that, but his talking would be all very funny, and we would think he's a madman. Okay. But mother used to be very, very kind to him. Okay. She was very, very solicitous to him. And later on we discovered, because when he passed away, all his experiences he brought out in the Tamil Advent. Okay, it's called, magazine is called Vaikarai. Okay, and his experiences came out there in English. He was at a very high level of consciousness, but in the physical world, behaving like a little child. Okay, so that's a Balavat. Then there used to be an Unmattavat also. Unmattavat means a little maddish. Okay, not fully mad, but mad. We used to also call. There was one lady, Punjabi lady. Her name was Swaraj Ben. Okay, she also had a touch of the higher consciousness, and she used to sit on the staircase which goes to the western side of the Samadhi. There's a staircase which goes up. Many of you have seen that. And there's only one staircase going up from the western side of the Samadhi. And she used to sit on those steps there and go on talking to herself. Okay. Every day. So Swaraj Men, we used to think of it as Pagla. Okay. So this can happen if your individuality is not very firmly grounded. But take Sri Aurobindo's case. Okay. He, not only that, so many other yogis, when you are well formed, you take this experience of being nowhere and everywhere at the same time, you take it in the right way. So that's what Sri Aurobindo is saying here. So torpor, okay. So word torpor, if you look at, it's a state of physical, vital, mental inactivity. That's the definition of torpor. So this is what can happen. Balavat, Unmattavat, Pishachavat. Okay, so in the Chandogya Upanishad, there is a case of a cart puller. He is a cart puller, mind you. Huh? And he's sitting under the cart and he's a Brahman knower. Okay, so this is also possible. Even in India also, we have had such cases. Hey, India is full of spiritual, realized men, but only some become famous. But I can tell you, I'm doing a little bit of looking here and there, and I'm seeing anywhere in villages, in small remote places, so many people have realized. Okay, the Sai Baba now I'm looking into, the first original Sai Baba, not the other one. Okay? I mean, he was a simple fellow. No one knew he was a Muslim or a Hindu. He used to sit in the church, not church, sorry, mosque. And he became so many, but he acquired fame later on. But at that time, hardly anybody knew him. This Pondu Swami also nobody. Like that, there have been any number of cases. Okay. So, this is the Jadavat. So, all these cases have been there. Unmattavat, Pishachavat, Balavat, Jadavat. Okay, so either it can be that, or you can be in the Nirvana consciousness, fully aware of itself, knowing yourself now, I am not the body mind life, my body mind life is only an instrument, and I am at absolute peace and silence. So that's the second possibility. In an immobile silence and peace of self-existence. Yesterday I said 3, but actually immobile silence and, it's not an or. No? So immobile silence and peace of self-existence. There is peace, but there may not be necessarily Ananda or power. There may not be. In Sri Aurobindo's case, very clearly there wasn't. Okay? In some other cases, there can be Ananda also, deep Ananda there can be. But silence and peace is there. No thoughts at all. Thoughts are occurring. They are down there in the mind. You are outside the mind. This is what he's saying. So is that enough, this situation, to know the truth? So they will tell you that there's something even higher up. Okay, so next, so you have climbed now out of your mind and you are at the higher mind level. Okay. Next, we see that the determinations of our mind do not at all proceed from itself. Now he is discussing what happens at the mental level. When you go to the higher mind level, you discover some very fantastic things. What do you see? You see that the determinations of our mind, what are the determinations of your mind? Your thoughts. They do not proceed from itself. It is not your brain that is producing the thoughts. Okay? Fantastic statement he is making. You are not thinking. Thoughts are occurring in you and you think that you are thinking. Okay? Next we see the determinations of our mind. Determinations of our mind, very clearly, thoughts. Do not at all proceed from itself. It's not coming from your mind. It's coming from outside. For waves and currents of mental energy enter into it from outside. This is what Sri Aurobindo discovered also when he made his mind silent. He said, I didn't know that thoughts come from outside. But when they are coming from outside, I had the capacity to throw them out. And as soon as I threw out my mind became silent, like a windless peak, mountain peak, he says. Okay, it became absolutely silent, and he could watch all these thoughts coming into your mind and going out. Okay, so these take form from outside. These take form in it and appear already formed from some, or appear already formed. Okay, this is very interesting because in synthesis he says something interesting which I will refer to. These take form in it or appear already formed in some universal mind or from other minds and are accepted by us as our own thinking. So he says a thought can come from outside in a finished form. Okay, you have a very clear philosophical statement which comes into your mind and you feel that that's your thought. No, it's coming from elsewhere. Now, this elsewhere also can be of two types. It can be from another mind, individual mind, or it can be from the universal mind. This is one possibility. So it's like importing a finished car into India. Okay. In fact, he uses the word commerce. Okay. He says import. So I am giving the same which is spoken of in the synthesis. So a finished product comes into India. Okay. You are accepting. A finished thought comes into your mind and you think it's yours. But it can be also a raw material. Okay. The raw material, the unformed thought comes into your mind and you give it a form. Okay, it's like importing parts and assembling them in India. Okay, exactly in the same way. Or you can manufacture in yourself also. So when you have a very strong mind, with the help of the universal, you can also manufacture your own thoughts. That you become original then. Otherwise, everything is coming from outside. This is what he's saying. So very clear. These take form in it and appear already formed from some universal mind, that's the first case, or from other minds and are accepted by us as our own thinking. This is what happened. I'll give you one instance. It was Jagadish Chandra Bose who was experimenting in Calcutta, and he was sending from one place, he was sending a wave, a vibration, and it was vibrating at a point non-physical distance of 10 meters outside. It was again responding like a radio wave. So this he never followed up. But in Italy, the same fellow got this idea and he invented the radio. And he got all the credit for it. But Jagadish Chandra Bose, who had done it 2 years earlier, never got any credit for it. Okay, so this is the raw material which went to the Italian mind, and Marconi was able to make the radio. Okay, so this is what Srimli is saying. This is what you discover. You are not thinking. Thoughts are occurring in you coming from outside. Okay? Then he says, we can perceive also an occult or subliminal mind in ourselves. Now, this is not in the universe, within yourself, from which thoughts and perceptions and will impulses and mental feelings arise. So, you have, as I told you, you are the cosmos, but it is individual cosmos. You have the superconscient, you have the subconscient, you have the inconscient, you have the intraconscient. The intraconscient we have described as the, if you think of yourself as a house, your kitchen garden at the back of the house. Why? It's in touch with the universe. Why? Because there is no roof. It's open to the sky. So when it is open to the sky, everything that is there in the universe, you can access it. And that's the intraconscient of Surendra is using the word subliminal, below the surface. Actually, it's not below the surface, but inside, deep inside yourself. Okay. So this is what happens in phenomena of hypnosis. The person tells you to let your outer consciousness, physical awareness die down, become quiet. Then your consciousness enters deep inside and you have access to information which normally you would not have, but it's all there. Okay? This is I find it very interesting because the intraconscient or the subliminal mind, Srimdo also calls it the inner mind. You are in touch with the universe and all the information that is there recorded in the universe is available to you. Exactly like the internet. Okay? Whatever you want, it is something unsubstantial. Okay? The internet contains all the information you want, but there can be errors. So that's exactly what this is about the intraconscient also. He says there can be errors, but huge amount of knowledge is available in the intraconscient, which is not available to your ordinary superficial physical mind. It is not available. So this is what you discover. That's what they are saying. Okay? We can perceive also an occult or subliminal mind in ourselves, from which thoughts and perceptions and will impulses and mental feelings arise. I leave it to you to work out, because I am not very sure myself, okay, of thoughts, perceptions, will impulses, mental feelings. We'll have to do a lot of thinking, but that will take us into a narrow lane, so we'll leave that. All these things are coming from the intraconscient. We can perceive too higher planes of consciousness, not only intraconscient but superconscient. Higher planes of consciousness from which a superior mind energy works through us or upon us. Now that's interesting again. Through us or upon us. And what is this? You are at the higher mind level, but you see that there is an illumined mind level. There is a mind level which is even higher up and more powerful. Okay, and that can work through you or upon you. If it is upon you, you become conscious of it. If it is working through you, you may not be conscious of it. Exactly like Ramanujan, the mathematician. He had information which was coming from the higher planes of consciousness into himself, but he knew theoretically that is coming from my goddess, but he could not see the process, and he was making all these 3,000 equations, which all turned out to be absolutely fact. Even today research is being done on his notebooks of Ramanujan, they say. He's a fantastic mathematician. Okay, so there is an example of intuition coming from the higher planes of consciousness and entering into you. So to see how precise he is. It works through us or upon us. When it is upon you, then you become conscious of it. Oh, I am getting an intimation from above. But if it is working through you, it is going through you like a post office. You may not be conscious of it, but you are conscious of the result. Okay. Finally, we discover that that which observes all this is a mental being supporting the mind substance and mind energy. So, is this intraconscient and is this consciousness universal only? So they're saying no, it's also an individual mind. The universal mind can also take an individual mind. The individual mind is the Purusha. But this Purusha is infinite, universal as well as individual. That's what you discover when you discover yourself. You see that you are the universe itself, but there is someone experiencing the universal consciousness. So that is the true consciousness. That's a true individual, not the ego. And the ego is only a shadow, a faint shadow, an outline of this true individual who is universal. Okay, so that's what he's saying here. Finally, we discover that that which observes all this is a mental being, very clear, supporting the mind substance and mind energy. Mind substance and mind energy is universal, but there is a mental being who is supporting all this. Without this presence, their upholder and source of sanctions, they could not exist or operate. Okay? So this mind, this Purusha has to be there. And you see this Purusha is supporting all the thoughts that are occurring. Your thoughts, your sentiments, your will, movements, all these things are the Prakriti. And then you realize that you are Purusha. You are the mental being which is absolutely calm and quiet and silent and non-active, and you see that all the thoughts that you are happening, all the vital things, all the physical movements in your is being, you are supporting it, but you are not identified with it. You realize that all that is happening in Prakriti, but you are watching it from above. Okay. Finally, we discover that that which observes all this is a mental being supporting the mind substance and mind energy. Mind substance, mind energy, universal. Without this presence, their upholder and source of sanctions. Now here only he has given upholder and source of sanctions. In Gita, the upholder is the Bharta, okay, and the source of sanctions. He is the source itself, Jnata. Okay? He is the Jnata, and finally he becomes the Ishvara. Okay, they could not exist or operate. This mental being or Purusha, now he is giving a name to it. Purusha first appears as a silent witness at the higher mind level. And if that were all, it would have to accept the determinations of mind as a phenomenal activity imposed upon the being by nature, by Prakriti, or else as a creation presented to it by Prakriti, a world of thought which nature constructs and offers to the observing Purusha. Now, note the word impose. Okay, this is the Advaita philosophy of Shankara. Okay? This mental being or Purusha first appears as a silent witness. It's not acting. Then, at our level, we feel that we are acting. How is that? That's what he's explaining. If that were all, we would have to accept the determinations of mind. What are the determinations of mind? Thoughts, feelings, will, all these things. As a phenomenal activity imposed upon the being by nature. So nature is imposing all its images on you, and you are thinking that you are doing. Okay? There is the Adhyaropa, the word used in Shankara philosophy is Adhyaropa. Aropa, Adhi Aropa. It is imposed on you, and you think that you are doing everything. Purusha is unconscious at the normal level. When it goes up to the higher mind level, it realizes that, oh, all this time I was thinking that I am doing. Now I understand that Prakriti was pushing all its images onto me, and I was thinking that I was doing. It's like the cinema screen. You are the cinema screen, and the pictures are being imposed on the cinema screen, and the cinema screen, which is you, your ignorant self, is thinking that I am doing all these things. But when the images stop, then this screen realizes that I am only a screen, vast, impersonal, without any form, shape, color, nothing. This is what I am. So all those images that I was thinking in the physical world, what are the images? My actions, my willings, my emotions and my thoughts. They were all being imposed on me. They are not me at all. That's what you realize. Okay? Imposition. Okay? To the observing Purusha. Now, is there a higher state? But afterwards we find that the Purusha, the mental being, can depart from its posture of silent or accepting witness. It need not be only a silent witness. It can also become a determination. It can become the Anumanta. It realizes that, oh, I only have allowed my body, mind, life to do what it is doing. I have given permission to it, a passive permission. Now I can, if I know that I am the permission giver, I can withdraw the permission. Okay. But afterwards we find that the Purusha, the mental being, can depart from its posture of silent or accepting witness. It need not accept. So when that happens, when your consciousness goes up to the higher mind, now you realize, oh, I had a bad habit of smoking. I don't want that. So now you can say no to the body, mind, life. The Purusha can dictate terms to the Prakriti of body, mind, life. So it becomes the Anuvanta, okay, the permission giver. All this is very clearly there in the Gita. When Swayambhu also discusses in the essays on the Gita, he discusses this. Okay. So it can become the source of reactions. So now you become the source, you become the Jnata, and finally you become the Ishvara. It can become the source of reactions, it can accept, it can reject, even rule and regulate. Become the giver of the command, the knower. That's a Jnata. The word is a Jnata. So this is what happens. So you have all these grades. Okay? You have the grade. First you are the witness, which is Sakshi. Okay. Next you become the Bharta. You realize that, oh, you only are supporting this Prakriti. Then you become the Jnata, not necessarily in that order. And then you become also the Bhokta. You start enjoying the everything that's happening in the. And then you, before that there is the Anumanta also. Okay. You realize that you are the Anumanta. I just put that Anumanta also. 1 second, I am adding in my in the word knower. Okay, so what is it?
Aurobindo also says Sakshi, Anumanta, and Ishvara.
Yeah, Ishvara is the last. Okay, so you become the first, the Anumanta. Ishvara means absolutely Lord, Master. Okay, finally you become Ishvara, and that's at the supramental level. Ishvara. What is yeah, tell me. Pardon?
What is Anumanta?
Anumanta is a permission giver.
Okay.
Anumati, permission. Okay.
Anumati, permission.
Anumati is the permission. So Anumanta is the one who gives the permission. Okay. So you become the permission giver, you become then the supporter, you become the Jnata, Bhokta, Ishwar. There's a sequence that happens as you keep going higher and higher from the higher mind level. You go to the element mind level, maybe you have one of these things. Then you go to the intuitive mind level and finally you go to the overmind level. Even the overmind level, does it tell you what the secret of origin is? No. That's what Surinder is going to tell you now. Okay. So then a knowledge also arises that this mind substance manifests the mental being, is its own expressive substance, and mental energy is its own conscious force. You realize that it is yourself who have created all these things. So that it is reasonable to conclude that all mind determinations arise from the being of the Purusha. But this conclusion is complicated by the fact that from another point of view, our personal mind seems to be a little more than a formation of universal mind. Okay, an engine for the reception, modification, propagation of cosmic thought waves, idea currents, will suggestions, waves of feeling, sense suggestions, sense form suggestions. So what's he saying here? But this conclusion is complicated by the fact that from the another point of view, our personal mind, the personal mind or normal mind, it seems to be a little more than a formation of universal mind. It's an engine for the reception, modification, propagation of cosmic thought waves. Your individual mind also is entering all this, but it's an engine. Okay, It is receiving, modifying, and re-exporting all these thoughts. And it is also propagating. You can also become a propagator of the thoughts. So that's what he's saying. So then it has no doubt its own already realized expression, predispositions, propensities. Wait, where is it gone? Propensities, personal temperament and nature. The individual mind has got all these characteristics. Okay, characteristics because it is limited, and comes from the universal. Sorry, what comes from the universal can only find a place there in the mind if it is accepted and assimilated into the self-expression of the individual mental being, the personal prakriti of the Purusha. The personal prakriti, your body, mind, life. There is also a universal prakriti, remember. So this is the personal prakriti of the Purusha. But still, in view of these complexities, the question remains entire whether all this evolution and action is a phenomenal creation of some universal energy presented to the mental being, or an activity imposed by mind energy on the Purusha's indeterminate, perhaps indeterminable existence, or whether the whole is something predetermined by some dynamic truth of self within and only manifested on the mind surface. So that means you still have a problem. You still don't know whether Prakriti, the energy in the physical world, is creating. That's what you thought first, and now you see that there are other things, but still the problem remains. You still don't know whether you are the creator or whether you are being imposed upon. You still don't know. That's what he's saying. But still, in view of these complexities, the question remains entire. Whether entire, note the word entire, there's confusion in the mind. The confusion disappears only at the higher mind level. So that's why when you rise to these, there are different philosophies. The Advaita philosophy says very clearly, you are Purusha, you are consciousness, but the Prakriti is imposing itself on you. So you have the Sankhya philosophy. The ultimate reality is two, not one. Okay? There is energy and there is the consciousness. And the energy is throwing all its formations and images onto the Purusha. And the Purusha is thinking, I am doing all these things. So that's his Sankhya philosophy. But Advaita goes even farther up. He says, no, go higher up and you will see that consciousness and force are really the same and they are united at the highest level. The ultimate reality is not twofold, but one. Okay? That's Advaita philosophy. Depending at which level you are, higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind, okay, over mind, and what experience you are having, you will have different philosophies. You will have the philosophy of Sankhya, duality. You will have the philosophy of Advaita, the Advaita, monotheism, only the ultimate reality is one, or you may have the philosophy of Shankara, Vishishta Advaita, Bheda, okay, all depending on which level of consciousness you have experienced the reality. So there is a doubt. Okay. That doubt disappears completely at the supramental level, but you realize fully that Satchidananda is a true originator of everything. And the physical world, matter is an originator, no doubt, but it's a secondary originator. It is originating my life and mind, but it is originating because there is involution. But the true origin of everything is the higher, the superconscious, not the inconscient. Okay? So that's what he's explaining here. But still, in view of these complexities, the question remains entire whether all this evolution and action, evolution, matter, life, mind, and action is a phenomenal creation of some universal energy. Is matter creating all this, presented to the mental being, or an activity imposed by mind energy on the Purusha's indeterminate, perhaps indeterminable existence? Or am I the originator of all these things? This doubt remains. Or whether the whole is something predetermined by some dynamic truth of self within and only manifested on the mind surface. Is there something even more inside and which is manifesting? I still don't know. To know that, we would have to touch or to enter into a cosmic state of being and consciousness to which the totality of things and their integral principle would better manifest than to our limited mind experience. Even when you are at the higher mind level, wonderful. You are peaceful, you are calm and quiet, but the problem of origin of existence remains unsolved. That's what he's saying. Okay? We have got 5 minutes. Shall we read the next one? Or if you want to discuss this, any aspect of it which is not clear, we can do that. Or if you, how big is the para? It's about a page. So, yeah.
When you see that is a Pagla type of stage, but at that stage, the person is himself is totally innocent, means he doesn't know what is happening, or he is aware of the situation, that he has gained some consciousness or this thing. He is aware or he is not aware of that.
Now, when you say he, what do you mean by he? Who is the he?
Person. The person you say, no, they are the Pagla type of person. You tell them Pagla, but they were all used to talk with them, and then they had some experience, but they were aware that they are a little conscious, a little above from the normal person or something.
Absolutely. They realize that they are not the body-mind life. Okay. So when you say is the person conscious, what do you mean by person? Are you talking of the person who is identified with the body-mind life like we are? No, it's not like that at all. Because he realized that he is not the body-mind life. He is fully conscious. This is my body-mind life, but these are instruments given to me. I am pure consciousness. I am the individual consciousness. Okay? There is an individual consciousness and universal consciousness. At the higher level, they become one. The individual becomes cosmic also. But still, there is an individuality. So, Shilpa, when you are asking whether the person remembers, what do you mean by the person? I told you just now, I gave you 2 examples. The person doesn't realize who he is. I gave you 2 examples. I told you about, about Sri Aurobindo. Says, who is this simple Sri Aurobindo Street? I don't know who he is. You follow? You
Hello?
Yes, tell me.
What do you mean that you have to be deeply rooted?
No, I didn't get the words. What do you mean by?
You know, like Sri Aurobindo says, that you have to be deeply rooted. What is the exact meaning of that?
Deeply rooted in the self, not in your body-mind life. We are rooted in our body-mind life. Nah? So you have to take out those roots and realize that you are really the self. You have to root yourself in the higher consciousness. You have to realize that you are coming from the higher consciousness. You are not the body-mind life.
Yeah, but then there are chances of you becoming that Pagla type also.
That possibility is there, yes.
Yeah, but how to overcome that possibility?
That's the preparation, the purification that is needed. That's why the Raja Yoga has got very, very systematic scientific method, okay? And in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, you have to go according to the Guru's directions. Then you won't go wrong. But if you don't follow the Guru's directions, you can go wrong. Okay, so that can happen. It can happen.
That means the best thing to overcome all these obstacles is to first open to your psychic being only.
Absolutely. That is very clear, because then you can't go wrong. Then you won't go wrong.
This is exactly what I wanted to ask. Have you to then is the best way to go through the psychic?
Your voice is not coming through very clearly.
Yes, Rangada, I'm asking, is it the best way to go through the psychic?
Absolutely, absolutely. The triple transformation in Life Divine says very clearly, get the psychic first and it will never deceive you. It will always give you the right directions. Okay. You can never go wrong with the psychic being.
But without Guru, we cannot get the psychic being, no? Without Guru. It's very difficult.
The idea of the Guru is there in India and it certainly helps. But I don't think you can say that without a guru you will go nowhere. You can't say that because there are so many cases who have no gurus, okay? But they, and also another thing, remember that your psychic being is growing through all your lives, okay? Every human being doesn't have a guru. In fact, he's not even interested in a guru. A normal businessman, what is he interested in a psychic being for or guru? In India, you have that concept, okay? Even businessmen also have gurus, okay? They always go to someone because in India, very clearly the idea is there that there are levels of consciousness and the ultimate aim of life is always self-realization, okay? Moksha, dharma, dharma, artha, dharma, kama, artha, moksha. The ultimate reality is realizing the divine. Even the Prime Minister of India, Morarji Desai, he went to America and told the president there, the aim of life is to realize the divine. That was son. It's a very common idea in India that spirituality is there, percolated into every Indian. So even a businessman who is not interested, okay, he is evolving from life to life. So you can evolve from life to life, and when your psychic being is sufficiently developed, you realize that you need guidance. That's when you go to the scriptures or you go to a guru. Going to a guru is very common in India. Yeah. In fact, in synthesis also, Sridhar says, we have read synthesis now in Guru. He says that many people don't have gurus, okay, that is only a concession. Sridhar also started with a guru, but that was only a concession. Ramakrishna also had gurus, many gurus. He didn't have only one guru. He had several gurus. For Advaita, he had the guru of the Totapuri. Then a Hindi speaking chap who was only dressed with a loincloth. Okay? He came and taught him the impersonal aspect of the divine. Then there was a lady, Bhairavi Brahmani. Okay, Brahmani Bhairavi. She taught him Tantra. Okay, so he took many gurus, but that is only a concession. But a guru undoubtedly will help you and put you on the right track. So we stop here today.
Okay.
Okay. And how do you get the psychic? By constant remembrance, by constant devotion, constant love. That's how you get the psychic power. Yeah. Okay.
But our Divine Mother didn't have any guru.
No, that's why. But when she came here in India, that's exactly what I'm saying. Na? The Divine Mother didn't have any guru, but she took help. She took help from Theon. She took help from Sri Aurobindo in the beginning. But you mustn't think that Mother is a disciple of Sri Aurobindo. They are co-workers. Okay, but she did take help from them. Na? When she came first time, Sri Aurobindo blessed her and she achieved the silent mind permanently. She was getting the silent mind experience on and off. But when she came to Sri Aurobindo, she sat at his feet on the staircase in guest house and she achieved the silent mind forever. That's what she said.
Okay. I have this question. These examples you gave, was it just happened to them, or there was an aspiration and working out or something, or it just came to them, these experiences? This lady in the ashram and others you gave examples of.
No, Gita, can you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying that the examples you gave today of this lady in the ashram or this Jadavat and all.
Yes.
So was it a result of their aspiration or the experience just came to them?
Oh, that I don't know about Swaraj Ben, who used to sit on the staircase. I don't know because there's no record. But about the other man, okay, there are records. Okay, after he passed away, all his experiences he had told somebody, and they came out in a series. Okay, so that we know he reached a very high level of consciousness.
This Pundi Swami and Sadhguru, I mean, were they like aspiring for it, or it just happened to them?
Sadhguru is a very interesting case, okay, because he goes up to the higher mind level and he has the experience of the ego disappears and he thinks that that's the highest. He doesn't believe in God, the personal aspect. He doesn't believe. He says God is your imagination. There's no God. There are only universal planes of consciousness. Okay. That was also Jiddu Krishnamurti also. Same thing. There's no God. All the Jains also say that. Huh? The Jains say that there's no God. There's no personal God. So it depends at which level you have stopped your development. Okay?
Thank you.
So,
Merci beaucoup.
okay. So, page 323. Huh?
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay, au revoir.
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay, au revoir, everybody. Songi, Shilpa, Yasmin, Jyoti, Anand, everybody. Au revoir.